I am your host, Danielle Mims. Welcome to Think Like a Kid, the podcast that helps parents and teachers stop guessing and start teaching the way kids actually learn. After working with hundreds of kids, I can promise you this: one-size-fits-all learning doesn't work. It's time to stop making kids fit the system and start shaping learning around the child. Each week, you'll get quick wins, creative ideas, and brain-based strategies to make learning hands-on and fun again. So whether you're in the classroom, the car, or halfway through your coffee, I am so glad you're here. Let's think like a kid. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Think Like a Kid. Today we have a very special guest. This is the one, the only, Maura Vivona. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
So Maura is a fifth grade teacher. She's also a mom of 4 children. She has been my lifelong adult life inspiration. I've always wanted to be like her, and she has been my teaching mentor from, I don't even know, I should have figured out how long ago it was, but decades, right? Like so long ago. And she has just been such an inspiration, and it feels like an honor having her in a full circle on this show to share some of her insight with you and to just share a little bit about what it means to be like thinking like a kid at the 5th grade level. So Maura just finished her master's degree in curriculum and instruction. She's a lifelong learner. She is super extra when it comes to teaching because that's what it takes. And so, yeah, we're just going to jump right in, and I have a list of questions, but we just want to hear from you and for you to just share your expertise with us.
Well, thanks. Thanks for that glowing review. You are amazing too, and I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we met at, she was my practicum mentor, and I went to North Central College, and she was like the it person. So they were just, it was a lot of pressure, like going into Maura Vivona's classroom. I will say that you were the first educator, first professional that's truly believed in me, and she's just stuck around the whole time and wanted what's best for me and just my success, and she's just helped me along the way. So
yeah. Well, there's no one like you, because I just remember being floored by you and supposed to be giving you feedback, and I was like, she does it better than I do. So I don't know. And you were brand new. This was your first ever experience in a classroom, and I was like, you know how some people just got it. You just got it. And I was just like, no notes. She's just perfect. And you've been like that. And then eventually, like down the road, I was was it called mentor program? When you started teaching after you graduated, and it was same thing. I was supposed to observe you and give notes. And I was like, it's better than I would do. I don't know.
Okay, so how long have you been teaching, and what specifically made you fall in love with 5th grade? Because you've kind of had that like tattooed on your forehead for your entire career.
I'm such a thinker about it too, because the district I'm in now, they want you moving, and I'm just like, I can't really teach anything other than 5th grade. So I started teaching in 2008, and I taught for 9 years, and then my first child was born. And then I stayed home for 7. And as much as it was time away from teaching, what I do now in teaching is so related to all that time at home, because it was my big thing now is like culturally responsive teaching. And I am an adoptive mom of 4 kids. And so I learned so much, because you have to do so much training when you adopt and when you do foster care. And it was all about like interracial families and understanding your white privilege and all this stuff. So like, I wasn't really thinking of applying that to teaching, but it was this huge learning curve for me. And now I can apply that in my classroom, and it's made my teaching so much better. I went back 3 years ago. So I think I'm ending year 12 now. And I've only ever taught 5th grade, and I've been in 3 districts and 6 schools. And I've only ever taught 5th. I'm getting moved again because of seniority, and they have to lose a grade level. So I'll be in the district, but again, I was just like, you can't really move me out of 5th. When you first start teaching, you're like just as good anywhere, because you don't really, you've learned what you've learned in college and whatever. But then after you've been teaching something for a while, I know some people really want to change, but for me, I just feel like I keep learning more and I keep getting better at it. And I feel like I would be a disservice anywhere else.
And I think that's what's key and what's so special about you is because you're such a good teacher, but you're like, I need to go back to school. I want to make it more exciting. Something that just popped into my head, if you don't mind sharing, is like how you just are making this 5th grade year so exciting for your students. Tell us a little bit of what you brought onto your school, and it's kind of just been a passion project.
Yeah. Well, the very first year I started teaching, because I student taught in this suburb that was wealthy and the wealthiest school in that suburb. That was just like my student teaching experience. And then my first teaching job was in a like polar opposite situation, mostly low income and a lot of high trauma district. And I was in fifth grade where I had student taught second. So it was very like, and I really wanted a kindergarten job at that point, which is hilarious to think of now. I'd be terrible in kindergarten. But I was like, "Oh, man, 5th grade." And I remember when I first it was like summertime getting ready for my classroom, my mentor gave me the book, The Essential 55 by Ron Clark. And she's like, "You need to read this book." It was not a suggestion. It was, "You need to read this book." And she's like, "This is how we do it here. This is how we implement rules. These are the expectations of our 5th graders." She's like, "The whole school doesn't do it, but all 5th grade does it. You need to know the Essential 55." So I was like, "Okay." And I read this book and I just fell in love with Ron Clark, which you do if you read any of his books because he's hilarious. So he was a teacher. He is a teacher, and he started in North Carolina, and then his methods work so well. He's like, "I want to try it somewhere where it's really hard." So he went to Harlem and he taught there and he used his methods and was super successful. He won Disney Teacher of the Year, and then he started his own school in Atlanta with another teacher, Kim Bearden, who's amazing. And so
I
if
follow
teachers
them
are
on
watching,
Instagram too. After you've converted me to just be obsessed with them, they're
you gotta go with me
yeah.
sometime because what they do is they started this school called the Ron Clark Academy. It's 4th through 8th grade, and it's a private school. And a lot of where they get their funding is it's like a professional development place as well. So their classrooms are their classrooms, but then there's stadium seating in their classrooms where educators can come in regularly. It's like once a month they have a day where educators can come in. It's quite expensive, but it's the best professional development you'll ever get. And you just get to watch everything in action. And Ron Clark, even though he's running the school and he's like super famous, he still teaches every single day, which is huge to me because, we don't like learning from people who are like, "Oh, I left the classroom and
I know it all. Yeah.
I'm like your boss now," and it's like, okay. But, he still like practices what he preaches. And it was just such a cool experience. So if you go down the Ron Clark rabbit hole, if you haven't yet, it's amazing.
I'll link it here
So what
too.
I
I'll link it in the show notes so that you guys can have a direct access and go check it out.
It's amazing. He's just the most energetic, and he has such high expectations. Like, he can be low-key scary sometimes when you see him in person because he's just so, like, strict, high expectations, but man, those kids rise to it, and it's amazing to see. And so when I got the opportunity to go last April, so like a year ago, I got to go. My district paid for it. It was so cool. And I knew all about Ron Clark, but I knew he had a house system similar to Harry Potter, but I didn't know much about it. And that's what I don't even know if that's really what I took away so much from that visit, but I was like, "Oh man, I want to do a house system." He has these 4 houses. They each have a color. They each have an animal mascot. They each have like lore behind them. They come from different countries. Each house has its own country of origin. It has its own coat of arms that all means that, like, if you go on his website, like Danielle will link, there's so much there. And so the idea is that you sort your students and then they each belong to this house. And so I was like, "Man, I really, really wanna do that." So I kinda begged my admin and they're like, "It's a big undertaking." And I'm like, "You need to
You're like, "You don't
understand,
know
like,
me.
you don't
You
have
don't know me. I can do
you
this
don't
for the
know
whole
me."
school."
And I'm like, "All I need is, like, people to get out of my way and I'm good." I'm like, "I'm not asking for help. I'm just asking for permission and then, like, please, like, I got this." So they let me do it in 5th grade, and we have 4 sections of 5th grade at my school, so it was kinda perfect because we have 4 houses. So my team has been great, and we're each, like, the leader of a house, and my husband and I made, like, a big wheel, like a Wheel of Fortune kinda wheel, and it's got the 4 houses, and we had a big sorting day at the beginning of the school year where each 5th grader got to spin the wheel. So your homeroom is not your house. Your homeroom's your homeroom, and then you just get a random assignment of all the 5th graders for each house, and then that's your house. So we go to specials with our house. So instead of lining my kids up for, homeroom to go to their specials like music, PE, and art, we line them up by house and they can just earn points. Anytime I'm teaching and a kid's amazing, I've memorized their houses, but you can just ask, like, "What house are you?"
Yeah,
You give points. My husband made an app for
of
us. So we
course,
give
yeah.
points through the app. It's so cool. And then at the end of every month, there's whoever has the most points gets their flag because we have flags for each house hung in the cafeteria. So it's really just bragging rights you're winning, which I learned from Ron Clark, and I like that too because that's enough. You don't need to do like a million extra things. They don't need a whole party. Like having their flag hung in the cafeteria is everything. So the rest of the school now is seeing it and they are
Oh my
aware of
gosh,
it.
that just, like,
So
kinda
it's
gave me
building
chills. I
excitement.
mean, it's such a sense of belonging, and, like, they are the head of the school, you know? Like, they're the top dogs, and then it's like they're setting such an example, and then just such a bonding too with the other 5th graders, which in other schools, it's just separate, right? Like, there's just separate 5th grade classes, and that's something another thing I've always admired about you is just your passion for belonging. Like, when I went to your classroom, from when like, the first 5 minutes, every child felt like they were a part of your family, and you just had that you've always had that gift, and it's so cool to see you bringing that to an entire school, and I'm glad that they let you do that because I don't think they really know you're you don't really ask for permission normally you just ask for forgiveness,
I'm like, this is big for
but
me.
I'm so glad that you're doing that, and it's such a huge success.
It's been amazing, yeah, so I really look into the house system, especially if you wanna, like, increase attendance, increase that sense of student belonging. The students will, like, do more for a house point than they will for whatever, like, "Oh, I'm gonna call your mom if you don't get this done." "Okay." But, it's like, "Okay, but you can get 5 house points if you do this." "Oh," because they are held responsible to their peers, and that's a whole different situation.
I love that, and I'm not even gonna ask permission. I'm gonna take a card from you. I'm gonna say if you guys have questions, if you're a teacher, because I know the audience is kinda split between educators and parents, and if you wanna learn more about how to implement that, I'll link Maura's contact information. You can always reach out to. She's just a lifelong
Yeah.
mentor for anybody. Okay, so I'm going to kind of pair two questions that I had together. When I found out I was getting the placement of going into a 5th grade classroom as my very first practicum, I was freaking out because I was like, no, no, I just want to do kindergarten, like 5th grade's scary. They're like the big guys. And I was nervous. There's this kind of like this association and this, stigma, I guess, with like the older kids. And you really debunked that for me. So I guess I want to talk about something that most people think about 5th graders or like the big kids that most people just kind of misunderstand and then relate it back to the podcast of like, what does, when you hear think like a kid in the 5th grade level, what does that actually mean to you?
Yeah. Yeah, I love 5th grade, they're the best. I had the same feeling, right? Like, I thought the little ones are sweet and the big ones are mean, and the 5th graders love you so hard, and I just think, like, at any age, even, like, beyond being a kid, but you wanna feel loved, you wanna feel, like, appreciated, and everybody wants their teacher to like them. Even when I'm in college, I want my teachers to like me, right? Like, that doesn't go away when you get older, and so even though, there might be, like, some self-conscious things and some, they're getting a whole new body, a whole new brain, like, they're going through a lot, but they still wanna be liked, even if they're not always showing you that. And I think I relate to that. I think a little bit of the edge I relate to too, right? Like, I'm not, like, perfectly sweet all the time, like, I got a little edge, and so I think, like, that's where I belong. And honestly, like, the little ones scare me so much more than the big ones, just, like, seeing them in the hallway, and they're just so many, big feelings over and you're just like, I don't know how to when someone is like, "I'm mad because, my friend started talking to the boy I like," I can relate to that, when you're mad because, you can't find a shade of red that's the right shade of red for your, strawberry, and you're crying about it. I'm like, I don't know I don't know what to say about that." So for me, I'm like, I can just relate so
Yeah.
much more to 5th graders. What's the second part of your
So
question?
just
Think
like
like a
what does
kid.
think like a kid mean to you as a
Yeah.
teacher, especially in the 5th grade world?
Yeah. I think always just thinking like, would you wanna be a student in your class? And I think it's, like, maybe an overdone question, but I really do think of it, and I have, like, a moment every institute day, right, where I'm just like, This is rough." And you think about, like, "Okay, well, how do my students feel every day when it's bell to bell of sitting like this?" And so I've always tried to I think that's why I'm so stuck on 5th grade too, is like I've made it where I think it's pretty good, and then over the summer, I'll revamp and I'll try to make it a little bit like, "Okay, let's make it more engaging, more fun to be here." And then I do that for a year, and then I'm like, "Okay, but it'd be even better." And then every year in the summers where really where I reset because, those of you that are teachers and moms, like, I don't bring homework after school, I don't do work on the weekends. I'm a mom, right? And it can't be my whole life, it's my job. So but over the summer, I do a lot. So that's kinda where I justify not working a lot. outside of school hours during the school years that I do so much in the summer. But in the summer, I'm always trying to like choose either something or sometimes it's a whole bunch of things that I'm like, okay, I'm just going to focus on reading. Like, how can I make reading? We got this new curriculum. It's really dry. The kids are not into it. What can I do? So the big thing I did and the big thing I wrote my thesis on and everything is, and I'm trying to work on a book, but don't plug it yet because it's so far away.
Well,
I'm
now
just
this is, like,
whatever.
on record, so it's gonna hold you accountable, so
No, I know now the pressure. Okay, I need pressure because I'm really taking my time. But it's all about like adding in color into your ELA curriculum and really making it like language arts and like adding in that
Mhm.
art piece because otherwise, like you think of yourself on an institute day sitting there bell to bell and just like how boring it is. And when it is like worksheets and it's just text after whatever, and you're sitting in your seat, it's really hard, and it's hard to give your best by the end of the day after all that. So, I do a lot of movement, I do a lot of choose where you wanna sit and talk to your friends while you work. That's what I wanna do on Institute Day. I wanna be able to talk to my teammates, and that's where I get my best ideas too, is when I'm hearing other people and bouncing ideas back and forth. So, I'm like, talk to people, sit where you want, pull out your crayon box, but we're gonna analyze text. And so, I'll go on a tangent about that. But basically, to your point, about like what do I do to really think like a kid, I really just try to think of what would be the most engaging. And lots of times when you just add in a piece of creativity, you add in movement, you get them out of their seats and out of the black and white world, that's when you get the best work and you get like the deepest connections. So I really try to do as much of that as I can. I know, at the Ron Clark Academy, they do a lot of music breaks. Like if they get to the end of a hard math problem, there's just a button on the wall you press and the music comes on and the lights and they all get up out of their seats and they dance, and as soon as it's done, they all sit down and they're ready to learn again because they've been trained so well. But, as much as you can, just, like, break it up and, like, try to have fun, and I think that, like, just an empathy piece of understanding what it's like, like, put yourself in their shoes as much as you can, and something else that's so important, when Danielle and I worked together, we were at an open concept school, and I tell this to people and they're like, "Oh yeah, I've seen those." And they describe something that is not what our school was, right? So like I'm like, "No, no, no." Like it's like you get to see the entire like 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th it was. You can see every one of those teachers teaching at the
There's
same
no
time.
wall.
It's just like little bookcases, I don't know, computer carts that are like separating our rooms. It's not like half walls throughout the school. It's we can see everybody. And people are like, "Oh, isn't that chaotic?" It's the calmest school I've ever
Mhm.
taught at, because the kids are so trained that, it's like a library, there's stuff going on around you, but you can talk, but you gotta be quiet. You gotta be calm. And I just learned so much from my teaching partner, Meg, during just watching her and seeing how like her management was so amazing. And I was like, "How come her kids are quiet and my kids aren't being quiet?" And I could just watch and I could mimic. And now teaching in a typical school where it's closed, it's like such a buzzkill that you never get to see, you just never. And I'm like, "How do you never?" I'm so confused. Like, you never get to see your teammates teach. So we have building subs and they're usually busy, but every once in a while they're not, right? And so I'll always tell the building subs, when you don't have somebody, you don't have anything, come to 5th grade. Like one of us will you can sub in for 15, 20 minutes. I wanna go see my teammate
Mhm.
teach. And I've got great teammates, but sometimes just sitting literally as a student in their room watching, you get a lot of ideas, and you're like, "Okay, like, I can see that that kid now in a different way, I can see that this kid is not engaged, the different than when I'm standing in front," right? And so you're just I think putting yourself in that place to be a learner all the
Mhm.
time, but also being like, "Okay, I'm gonna be a student now as much as I can." And I'm gonna try to, like, see how does this feel? How does this make me feel? Am I bored? Am I excited? Because if I can pull out crayons and I can color while I'm working, that's for me, I'm gonna be so much more engaged than if I just have to sit there and read a text, especially if that text is hard for me.
I love that. Thank you so much. Okay, so something else that I noticed quickly about working with you and well, under you, and then yes, I forgot to mention that we worked together. Maura helped me get my first job, my first real job that I couldn't even believe I was getting paid to do. But you had quite a few difficult students. I've had difficult students, and I think something that we've bonded over is being able to see past behaviors and seeing underneath and like the true needs and figuring that out. So I don't know if you have any, I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but like any stories of like a student or a kid, and obviously we don't like need to say names or anything like that, but someone who was labeled and like had maybe a label following them up to 5th grade and they're just difficult or they're checked out or they're lazy. What did you recognize that was going on underneath? Like, how did you kind of shift perspectives and like pull out their full potential?
Yeah, I think just acknowledging that it's different for each kid. I'll always grab the kids that other teachers don't like get excited about, because I know that I'm going to love them and I know that every kid needs to be loved. So if there's a student back when I was teaching at the same school we worked at, and it was just 2 sections of 5th grade, if there was a student that my teammate was like, "Oh," I was like, "Please give 'em to me, give 'em to me, give 'em to me. I got this, I got this." And it's not that I'm magic and I can make the kid like, reach their highest potential in that 1 year, but I know they're gonna be loved with me. Like, I can always just assure that, like, I'm gonna love and I'm going to, like, laugh with them because 'cause they're usually hilarious, right? They're usually the
Like,
most hilarious kids, if you can find the humor in it. But I think, yeah, just, like, knowing every kid is so different. So, like, I have a student this year who very kinda about school, just, like, checked out, like, isn't, like, gonna be a teacher pleaser where they're like, I don't think he did an assignment for me from August until December, just didn't do anything. And I would try different things, about like, okay, should we get parents involved? Got parents involved. Parents are great. Kids still like, still not going to do any work, just, and he was smart too. That's what, that always what gets you is like when you sit down and just talk with him and you're like, dude, you know
yeah.
all this, like that's such a huge part of this. You know it. And so it was just trying to find the thing. He had kinda like, I would just say, like, negative, view of school until last year in 4th grade, and his 4th grade teacher and he just really clicked, and around December, I found out if on Friday afternoon, like, the last half hour of the day, I was like, "If you get your work done, you can go visit your 4th grade teacher," and he's done every assignment since, like, literally, like, that one was magic, and the 4th grade teacher's like, "You should see him when he comes in because he's such a different kid, instead of being that, like, kinda silly and like, I don't know," kid, like, he is a leader, and all my students are like, when he comes in like he's some kind of celebrity, and she was, like, taking pictures of him as the students were, like, reading their work to him, and, he's just being really encouraging, and he has this whole different, like, personality he gets to have of, like, the leader and, like, the with it kid, and that part is in him, and he's starting to, like, see that more and more, and so it's gonna be so hard to hand him off to middle school too because I'm like, "This 4th grade teacher's gotta go with him," because and I think too, like, as a teacher, we wanna be, like, that teacher for every kid, but, like, opening your heart and realizing, like, it's this 4th grade that is his person, is this 4th grade teacher, and I'm good with it because it makes him successful, and it makes him get his work in. So, like, just, like, honoring those relationships is so important, and she's been obviously so wonderful. She's cool with me sending this kid down every Friday. Um, and when he doesn't come, she just knows, "Did you not get your work?" Or what was going on. Sometimes we have a special event. But when he comes, then she's like, "This is great because I know that you did all your work, and that's why you're here right now." And so I think just kinda, like, working and lots of times it is like, "Okay, that didn't work with that kid, that didn't work. Okay, okay, okay," and then, like, trying to find, like, what's the thing that I can motivate you with? And sometimes you don't quite get it, sometimes you get, like, this much more by the end of the year, and sometimes, like, with this kid, I'm getting so much more, and just not giving up and, like, continuing to try, and that kinda energy is contagious too because he has some other little friends that are boys and girls are very different, in general in 5th grade and probably lots of grades, but the boys are a little less, like, eager to please, right? Like, so when he gets his work done and he gets to see his "Well, can I do okay, what if I okay, well, you haven't done your work, honey." "Well, okay, so I'm gonna get all my work done, and then I can see my 4th grade teacher Friday?" So that kinda just becomes, like, contagious because, well, he's being successful, I wanna be. And I've literally had this little boy who's like, "Hey, you know how this student is getting their work done? Well, I'm gonna start doing that too now," and it's just so cute. And they're still so cute in 5th grade, like, they're not scary, they're cute. So, I think as much as you can, just, like, trying to think outside the box and get creative, and lots of times the kid doesn't know, you can try talking to them, sometimes they don't know what's gonna motivate them, but then you can kinda sometimes find that little thing that you're like, "Ooh." I had a student, remember when you were with me, but he would do anything for a Pokemon card. I spent so much of my paycheck on Pokemon cards, and then I would, fan the deck out. I don't know anything about Pokemon, I don't, but, like, I'd fan the deck out if he got all his stars or whatever it was. This was so many years ago when I first met you, Danielle, but, and he got to pick the Pokemon card. That's something he worked for. So I think just, and the thing about 5th graders too is they get it. They get why he gets a Pokemon card and I
Mhm.
don't, you know? And, like, other kids will be like, "Well, can I see my teacher?" "Okay, if you did your work, you know, like, I'll make sure I'm not gonna bombard 4th grade staff." But, like, you know, I don't want if you've been doing your work all along, that doesn't mean you don't get a reward, but lots of times kids will just, like, really root hard for that kid that they see, like, I've seen this kid struggling all year and now they're not, and, like, they're so excited, they're like, "You get to see your teacher," you know? It's
Mhm.
so sweet how, like, supportive they all are of each
I
other.
love that, and I think it's a lot of self-awareness on your part too, to just realize, "Okay, well, this isn't working," and I think when people think of classroom management in general, whether it's, like, the parents or teachers, it's like, "Okay, well, here's, like, a class-wide classroom management plan. If someone struggles, we'll put them on, like, just a behavior chart, they'll get stickers, all will be well," and it's like, that doesn't happen, that's not realistic, and a lot of times what happens is teachers get frustrated and they're like, "Okay, let's move to discipline then." And
Yeah,
it takes someone who's very passionate, who's meant to teach to be like, "No, we need to get to his or her individual level and their motivations." And the bottom line, the key is a relationship and it's a mutual respect, right? It's not like you got to listen to me or you're going to get sent to the principal or you're going to have, recess taken away or whatever. It's like, no, like let's just actually figure out how to have him or her succeed. So, thank
yeah,
you for sharing that. I think that's really valuable for people to kind of just try because I mean things don't work. You can try 10 things and maybe it's the 11th thing and maybe it works for a month and you got to change it again, but it's kids have to be seen and figured out because it's not just black and white, kind of how a lot of people
yeah.
think.
And I'll tell you too, like, teaching and then I was home during COVID with
Mhm.
my children, and teaching now, like, it is different, man. It is different. The kids are different. That one size fits all, like, used to fit some, and now I feel like it fits, like, 5, you know? Like, you gotta get more creative. I don't know, it's a different world, so I think I really yeah, I moved away before it became out of vogue. I moved away from all those flip charts and
Right.
flip your color or whatever, you know, for your behavior because so much can just be solved with a conversation, you know? The kids don't wanna disappoint you, and if you just pull them aside, you don't embarrass them, you pull them
Mhm.
aside and you have a conversation with them, 9 times out of 10, no matter the kid, that's gonna solve your problem. Maybe just for an hour, but it'll solve it for, you know, that hour, and then, you know, you keep working at it, you keep communicating, you keep because I haven't had a student who didn't want to please me on some level.
Right. Well, thank you so much. I do want to ask one more question. I love to give listeners a takeaway, something that they can try right when they're done listening to this episode. So, whether it's a teacher or a parent of a big kiddo, I know parents, I mean, I struggle with this too, is just like the patience and not really knowing how to get through to a child. So, what is something that a parent or a teacher can do with their older kiddo today? Or what does a fifth grade kid want adults to know about them, if that makes sense. Like, what is something that you think a fifth grader wishes adults understood about them?
Okay. I switched my answer when you said it that way.
You can do both.
I think, like, removing as much shame from growing up as you can. I think that we don't mean to as parents or teachers or society, but we kinda shame kids into growing up, and it's, like, embarrassing to go through puberty. It's embarrassing to start liking boys or start liking girls or have crushes and it's a very natural part of life, and I think one of the reasons why my students do, like, latch on to me, and when I tell you they're Velcro, it's like, oh my gosh, like hot glue. These kids are hot glued to me during the day, but I think a lot of it is acknowledging and, like, honoring where they are in life and not making them feel stupid for like, I hear a lot of teachers say, you know, like, we had, like, this whole very sweet boy who wanted to date all the girls in 5th grade this year, right? And so I was having a lot of conversations with him about respecting girls, and if you're looking to just get to the end of 5th grade to say, "I've had 15 girlfriends," that makes girls feel bad, and, like, just, like, talking to him about, like, respect and girls aren't a number and blah, blah, blah. But another teacher was like, "Well, we don't have girlfriends and boyfriends in 5th grade. We don't have it." And I just thought, "Well, yeah, they do. Yeah, they do." You know? And I think, like, making them feel like you're too young or you don't understand, you couldn't makes them feel, like, a little ashamed, right? And you're not gonna stop those like, that growing up feeling that they have. So I think as much as we can as parents, letting them express themselves and not making them feel like, "But you're just a kid, you're just a kid." Letting them express themselves, meeting them where they are, And like this boy who I'm like, I get that you want a lot of girlfriend. I get that. I get that you like that validation. But let's look at empathy and let's look at how this is making girls feel. And if you wanna be able to have girlfriends, like, you're now gonna get this reputation that people aren't gonna want to associate with you because they think that you're using them. So what could you do to actually, get a girlfriend that, you know, someone that you would be excited about? And so, like, just having those conversations and, like, I know as parents too, it's hard to see your kids grow up, and we don't wanna, like sometimes it's like, "Well, I don't wanna push them into something," and it's like, "You're not," right? Our kids are our kids, like, I can't change anything about them, you know? My kids are so who they are, my children at home, and I think just, like, meeting them where they are and not making them feel less than because they're little has been a really important part of me being able to connect with kids, having them build
Mhm.
trust, and then, as a teacher, ultimately having them do good work for me. They care, like, on a standardized test when I tell them, like, "Just so you know, this reflects on me." They're like, "Oh," and, like, they're like, "Okay, I wanna do good for you." Like, even if I don't really care about this test and it's awful, like, I don't wanna make you look bad. So, like, there's that piece of, like, that mutual respect. When I show them that I respect them and their feelings and where they are, they then have that same respect for me. So, I think I would say that. I would say when you have these older kids, understanding that, like, I'm at a childhood transition stage, right? So, like, they're kinda going from kids to teens right when I have these 5th graders. And I know as a parent, it's hard seeing your kids grow. I have so many of them that I'm like, "You can grow. You can I'm good." But I know especially it can be hard to, like, let that go, but as much as you can, keep the communication open, and if they feel that they're not gonna be judged, they're gonna talk to you a lot more, and that's really the key to, you know, having a relationship.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I know we could probably just talk for
I
hours and
know.
hours, and we probably will as soon as we hang up, but I try to keep the episode super short for the listeners. But Maura Vivona, thank you so much for joining us on Think Like a Kid. I will link her contact information below, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much. I'll see you
Bye.
soon.
Thank you for listening to Think Like a Kid. If this episode gave you an idea, a reframe, or a little win, the best way to say thank you is to share it with a friend or leave a quick review. It helps more parents and teachers find these conversations, and honestly, it means the world to me. Until next time, friend, keep meeting kids where they're at and keep thinking like a kid.